December 17th, Aunt Carrie's birthday. On December 17th, Joaquin woke up first. He even opened the magic advent calendar before Mama and Papa were up. The picture was of an entire procession of pilgrims on their way up a steep mountainside. The minute he unfolded the paper, Papa came in. "You haven't opened it already, have you?" "Yes, but I haven't read the piece of paper." And Papa hurried into the bedroom and got Mama out of bed. She wasn't even allowed to brush her teeth. They sat down on the edge of the bed and peered at the piece of paper. It was Papa's turn to read. Sephariel. It was the end of the 6th century, and across the Macedonian chain of mountains spread a long procession of pilgrims. Down the bank of the Axios River, a sheep farmer looked up at the mountains. First he saw the 7 godly sheep rolling down the mountainside like a pearl necklace. Around them fluttered a white bird, and behind the sheep came 4 men, one of them holding a shepherd's crook in his hand. Behind the 4 shepherds came even more people. The amazing sight lasted only a second or two, and then it was gone. The sheep farmer rubbed his eyes, but remembered that his father had told him of having a similar vision many years earlier, a little further down the Axios Valley. He had seen a mysterious company escorted by 2 angels. Long after the vision of the pilgrims' procession had gone, the sheep farmer realized that the white bird had not been a bird at all. He, too, had seen one of the angels of the Lord. The pilgrims followed the river down to where it ran out into the Thermaic Gulf in the Aegean Sea. Elizabeth had never seen water so blue. Ephriel pointed up at the mountain peak, far away. "That's Mount Olympus. In the old days, the Greeks believed the gods lived there. They were called Zeus and Apollo, Athena and Aphrodite. But now angel time tells us that 569 years have passed since the birth of Jesus, and no one believes in the Greek gods anymore." "Do you believe in Jesus?" said Elizabeth. The angel nodded. "But it's only about 40 years since the church closed the academy, the ancient school of philosophy in Athens. That was founded almost 1,000 years ago by a famous philosopher named Plato." "Why'd they close a school?" Ephriel said something that Elizabeth hid in her heart. "Many things have been done in the name of Jesus that do not please heaven. Jesus wanted to talk to everyone. He never expected people to keep their opinions to themselves. Only a few years later, Paul came to Athens. He was the first great missionary for Christendom, and when he arrived in Athens, he wanted to speak to the Greek philosophers. He asked them to listen to the words of the Lord, but he wanted to hear what they thought as well. After a while, they came to a city located at the innermost point of the Gulf. Ephriel said that the time was 551, that the city was called Thessalonica, and that the Romans had made it the capital of Macedonia. As early as 50 years after the birth of Jesus, Paul established a Christian community here, and we're still a long way from the Holy Land. Paul wrote 2 letters to the Christians in this city. We can read them to this day, for both of them are found in the Bible. Elizabeth thought about the angel's words. She had not thought it possible to keep a few letters for so very long. They entered the city by the town gate, and in the early morning, and hardly a soul was to be seen in the streets. Ephriel pointed to the many churches and said that some of them were several hundred years old. He stopped by one of them and said, 1,500 years shall pass, and this church of St. George will still be here. They sped east and soon came to another city. This is Philippi, where Paul made his first speech on the European soil. Here he established the first Christian community in Europe. In the Bible there is a letter which he wrote to the Philippians when he was imprisoned because of his faith. Ephriel pointed to an octagonal church. All of a sudden, one of the doors was opened from the inside. Ephriel had already started to say, "Fear not," when out of the octagonal church came another angel. He took a few steps towards Elizabeth and said, "Greetings, my daughter. I am Seraphael. I am coming with you to Bethlehem to welcome the Christ child." Joshua struck the shepherd's crook against the church wall and said, "To Bethlehem, to Bethlehem." They set off along the old road between the Ionian Sea and Constantinople. Seraphael told them that the road was called Via Egnatia. They stormed eastward, and as they ran, Ephriel said, "The time is 511 after Christ, and we shall be in Constantinople before it's 500. Papa looked at the atlas to see which way the pilgrims had gone. Here were the Macedonian mountains. Here was the Macedonian mountain chain. Then they came to the Axius River. That's here, and this is the Thermaic Gulf. Where they're standing here, they can see Mount Olympus to the right. That's correct. It all fits. He opened the second atlas. There's the Via Egnatia. Must be this road. For here you see Thessalonica and Philippi. Isn't there a map of Paul's travels? Said Mama. Papa paged through the atlas. Joachim thought it was a little magical, too, since it showed how the world looked in every age. It even showed cities that had been buried in earth and sand many, many years ago. Here it is. Paul visited Philippi and Thessalonica on his second journey. When Joachim came home from school, the telephone was ringing. He thought it must be Mama or Papa because they sometimes called to tell him that they would be home a little later. He hated, or to say that he could find something to eat in the refrigerator. He hated that more than anything. Hello? It's John. What would he say? Joachim thought hard, then repeated the phrase Mama usually said. Where have you been? I'm somewhere out in the wilderness, but we can meet some other time. I just wanted to know how it's going with the magic advent calendar. Fine. It's like having a birthday every day, because now Mama and Papa are reading all the papers too. We do it together. Is that so? It's still possible to read them? Joachim didn't understand what he meant. We read them every day. Fine. Yes, that's fine. Where are the pilgrims? I think it's called Philippi. We've looked it up on a map. That's good. That was the point of it, too. Oh, but Joachim, yes? What do you think the Greek sheep farmer thought when he saw the angel procession in the Axius Valley? I'm sure he was very frightened. You could say that again. There are a lot of things Mama and Papa want to ask you about. Can you come and have coffee with us? John laughed. Then he said, It's not Christmas yet. You can have coffee and cakes anyway. We've baked a lot already. He was suddenly afraid John would stop talking. Are you sure the woman in the photo is called Elizabeth? I'm almost sure. If not, she's called Thebesile. Joachim thought of the strange advent calendar. Quirinius had given Elizabeth, and he thought of what John had said when they met by the garden gate. Perhaps she's called both. Perhaps she's called Elizabeth Thebesile. There was a long silence. Yes, maybe so indeed. Was she Norwegian? Yes and no. She was from Palestine, from a little village near Bethlehem. She said she was a Palestinian refugee, but it seems she was born in Norway. The whole the whole thing is so strange. So she ran to Bethlehem with the Furiel and the little lamb? What a lot of questions, but now I must hang up. We must learn to wait, and wait, you see, Joachim. Did you know that Advent means something that is to come? And then he hung up. Joachim couldn't concentrate on anything until Mama and Papa came home. He had to tell them about the phone call over and over again because Papa wanted to be absolutely sure John hadn't said anything important that Joachim had forgotten. Elizabeth Thebesile. There can't be anyone called that. But there was something else. Joachim knew that a refugee was someone who had to flee his or her own country because of war and danger, but he didn't know that anyone had had to flee Bethlehem. Papa consulted the atlas again. He told Joachim that many people in the villages around Bethlehem had had to move because of war. Some of them had lost their possessions and were in such difficulties that they had to live in refugee camps. A good Samaritan should have come to help them, Joachim said, because Jesus wanted to teach people to help one another when in need. And then there would have been peace. And peace is the message of Christmas. Good night.